Ilia Malinin walked onto the Olympic Gala ice at the Milano Ice Skating Arena on February 21st, wearing a gray hoodie and frayed jeans with the word fear printed upside down across his sweatshirt. And what he did next was not a gala performance in any traditional sense, but something the sport had genuinely never seen before. A 20-year-old Olympic gold medalist using the same ice that had broken him 8 days earlier to show the world exactly what breaking looks like from the inside. He skated to Fear by NF, an American rapper whose music centers on mental health struggles and the experience of losing control of your own mind. And instead of performing the technical showcase that gala audiences expect from the sport's most gifted jumper, he acted out what had happened to him on February 13th. The scrolling through hate comments, the flinching from cameras, the hiding under the hood, the visible representation of a mental collapse visualized on Olympic ice in front of every athlete and official and camera in the building. The context that makes the gala performance so significant is the specific and public nature of what Malinin had experienced 8 days before it, because his description of the Olympic free skate in his own words was not the standard athlete language of a bad performance, but the language of someone recounting a dissociative experience, saying that traumatic moments flooded his mind the instant he took his starting pose, that his legs felt like stone, that he could not take a deep breath, and that he lost control of his body in front of millions of people while the entire world was watching and expecting perfection. He was not describing a competitive underperformance, but a mental health crisis experienced in real time on the largest individual stage his sport produces. And the combination of his public description of the experience and then his decision to return to the same ice 8 days later and dramatize it for a global audience represented a form of athletic honesty about psychological experience that the sport has almost never encountered at this level of visibility. His exact words to journalists after the gala performance captured precisely what he intended it to communicate, saying it was an extension of the emotions he had been feeling for the past year leading up to the Olympics, and then adding that the pressure from people, the noise, the media, the thoughts had been so stressful and that it was something no athlete should have to go through. And those words from a 20-year-old who had been operating under the specific and suffocating pressure of being declared inevitable before a competition began were not deflection, but the plain articulation of what the previous year of his life had actually cost him. The hoodie with fear written upside down was not a costume choice made for aesthetic impact, but a visual argument about the direction of control. Because fear written upside down on the person wearing it is fear visible to the world before it is legible to the person carrying it, which is the specific experience of anxiety and pressure that Malinin was describing, a force that the audience and the media and the expectations were generating and directing at him while he was trying to perform beneath its weight. The Olympic Gala typically features the medalists and invited star performers in the kind of celebratory showcase that provides a warm release from the competitive tension of the preceding weeks. And the International Skating Union made a specific exception to include Malinin, despite his 8th-place finish, because his star power and his team gold medal and the global conversation that had formed around his free skate collapse made his presence at the gala a matter of public significance that superseded the standard eligibility framework. He performed twice that evening, appearing first with the Team USA group to upbeat music before the solo to Fear that changed the conversation. And the contrast between those two appearances was itself part of the statement, because the first showed the version of himself the sport had marketed, the quadruple jumping phenomenon who makes the impossible look casual, and the second showed the version that the pressure of producing that performance on the Olympic stage had actually produced inside him. After acting out the mental breakdown, Malinin landed a quadruple jump and then executed the backflip with a one-footed landing that has become his signature move since the International Skating Union legalized backflips in competition in June 2024.
and the crowd responded with a standing ovation that was clearly not for the technical elements, which they had seen him perform at higher difficulty in other contexts, but for the specific act of a person returning to the location of their most public failure and finding a way to transform it into something that belonged to them rather than to the failure. NBC commentator Tara Lipinski captured the significance of what the Gala performance represented for Malinin's future competitive development by saying that this experience would fuel him even more, which was not a standard analytical observation about motivation, but a recognition that an athlete who has processed a public breakdown through public performance has done something that changes the psychological relationship to pressure in a way that private recovery cannot fully accomplish. The ending of the performance was the moment that silenced the arena completely, and that has become the detail most consistently reported by people describing what they witnessed, because after the backflip and the crowd reaction, he mimed praying on headphones, tugged them over his ears, and the music cut to immediate and total silence, leaving him standing alone at center ice in the quiet he had been unable to find across the previous year of noise and scrutiny and expectations. That visual was both a theatrical choice and a psychological declaration, because putting on headphones that block external noise while standing on the ice where external noise had broken him was the specific form of reclamation available to him on that stage, and the entire arena going silent in response to his silence was the crowd giving him what the performance asked for, which was not applause, but the recognition that the quiet he was demonstrating was something he had earned the right to claim.
The confirmation that he was heading to the World Championships 6 weeks after the Olympic collapse to defend his title was delivered in language that revealed exactly how he was processing the experience, because he described it as a redemption competition rather than a comeback. And the distinction is not semantic but substantive, because a comeback is a return to a previous state, while the redemption is the transformation of a specific and named failure into something that no longer defines the person it happened to. The precedent he was chasing in Prague was Nathan Chen's 3 consecutive World Championship titles from 2018 through 2021, and pursuing that legacy 6 weeks after the most public individual failure of his career, while having just performed his mental breakdown on Olympic ice, was the specific and unusually complete kind of competitive motivation that most athletes would require significantly more time and privacy to reach, and that Malinin was already demonstrating publicly before he had left Milan. The significance of what Malinin did at the Gala extends beyond any individual competition result or any specific achievement in figure skating's technical record, because he produced something genuinely new in the sport's history, which is an elite athlete using Olympic ice to educate a global audience about what Olympic pressure actually does to the human mind, not through a press conference statement or a social media post, but through the specific language of performance that his discipline uses to communicate experience to audiences who would not otherwise have access to the interior of that experience. Every young figure skater who watched that Gala performance received information about the psychological reality of elite competition that no coach briefing or federation communication could have delivered with the same specificity or the same emotional authority, which is that the person standing on the Olympic podium with a gold medal is the same person who stood on the same ice 8 days later with fear written upside down on his short sweat, and that the distance between those two versions of the same athlete is not a character flaw or a competitive inadequacy, but the specific and documentable cost of being human inside a system that has collectively decided to treat you as inevitable.